your name again?
Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Don't make yourself too.
Do you want me to use?
You don't want to use mine?
Well, it doesn't make any difference how much battery do you have. I only have a little bit.
66%. So let me make sure you have more.
They have an audience mic if you'd like to ask.
Would anyone mind taking a video of this for me? Didn't do this ahead of time. You don't mind? It's rolling.
Okay, cool.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna go up here to be better.
Hi, Jodi. I'm back here.
And Sven, will you be
That was my first time seeing the Souce family, and I was really blown away by it. It was so well done. Thank you so much. And I don't know do you guys live near here, or where did you come from?
We live in Los Angeles.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, as like an aspiring filmmaker, it's kind of boring, but it was so interesting to I was curious the whole time how you are connected to the Souce family, how long it took for you to work with that material and to gain the trust of everyone involved, and because there was so much beautiful footage, I mean, what was that process like? How many years to go through it? I mean, it's such a commitment, and 10 years down the line, it's still so potent and beautiful, and we're still in the age of Aquarius, so all these questions and idealisms are still happening, so thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words, and yeah, thanks. It was a long process. It was quite a long process. So I first found out about the Souce family in 1999 when I was visiting with a friend, and he showed me this box set from a Japanese site label. It was a music box set, and it just had a picture of Yahweh on the front and tiny little Souce family members in his belly, and it just said God and hair. And he was like, Jodi, oh my gosh, you gotta check this out. Have you seen this? Do you know about this group in LA? And I was like, no, I don't. And I had researched many groups for years before that, so I was really surprised. I had never seen anything about them. And the entire box set was in Japanese, so I couldn't find anything out, but I saw these incredible record covers, and just determined to find out more about them. And about 5 years later, my former husband was at Amiga Records, just looking through the classical CDs, and on top of them, totally out of place, was this student film of the Souce family. And he brought it home to me and was like, check this out, and I was like, oh my God, and watched it, and I was so taken, even though it was an amateur, a student film. There were interviews with many of the Souce family members and a couple of their kids, and I was so taken and moved, by what the Souce family members had to say. It was completely not at all what I expected when I just saw the record covers, and I was a little bit creeped out at first, because of my own cultural brainwashing about alternative spiritual communities. Over and over again, we're told that these are dangerous groups, they all end badly, and you better watch out, And so when I heard that, I listened to the student film, I was really intrigued. I reached out to see if they had a website, and at that point they had a website, and Isis Aquarian contacted me right away, and I had a publishing company process at that time and thought it would make a great book. So we started working on a book together, and that was a 2-year process, and along the way she told me that the Souce family, that she had 4 hours of home movies and thousands of slides, and when she said that, I was like, okay, this has to be a documentary. But what happened was I got to know the Souce family members gradually through the book process, and that was nice because we did initial research that way, and I got to spend time in their homes and really get to hang out with them. And so by the time we had our funding for the documentary, we got the funding in 2010. The book came out in 2007, it was really pretty easy to get people on board because they already knew me. They liked the book, you know, and knew I was a part of that with ISIS. And they trusted, most of them trusted, you know, ISIS enough to be involved as well. So that's how it happened, and we started shooting seriously around like 2010, and we finished the film in 2012. And yeah.
So that was your first documentary?
That was.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'd been a music video director in the 90s and then got jaded by the music industry and started a book publishing company and really got into diving into alternative spirituality and subcultures through my book publishing company, which I was really grateful to do because I had a depth of knowledge and understanding before I made the film. Yeah.
One more question. It's co-directed, and what was your role and what was the other person's
Yeah,
role?
so Maria Demopoulos is the other director, and she is someone I've known for a very long time. She's a really good friend. She's a commercial director. So I had been, you know, both of us were directing music videos at one point. She was producing them, and I was directing. And when I decided to make the film, I realized I'd been sort of out of the production world for a while, and so I wanted to get somebody I really trusted in. And she was directing commercials at that time and had a lot of great skills, and she contributed greatly to the film. I mean, it's why it's, you know, the quality level that it is. Her husband, John Tanzer, shot the entire film for us. And so it was very much a collaboration. She also, I should mention, has like a very different perspective of the Souce family than I do. She's more scrutinizing. I mean, I was scrutinizing too, but she just had a very different point of view. So that sort of tension that we had together was really good. I think it resulted in like, you know, a very balanced film, at least, you know, I think so.
Thank you.
Yep. I should mention here, I just want to introduce everybody properly. So we have Zarathustra Aquarian right here, who joined the Souce family in 1971, is that right?
First time I ever came to Souce was late 70, and then I joined early 71.
You did. And then we've got your wife Amy here, over there, who never joined the Souce family.
Well, I was living in Beverly Hills going to chiropractic school, and I drove by the Souce every day for 4 years and ate there once because of the busy schedule. And there's a lot lately in a few minutes that I'd like to share that was on the video, because Zarathustra was at the birth of Superman, the first baby that was born, Solomon at the Souce. And I never asked him the question, because we had a home birth with our daughter, and we used Tantra and conscious conception and flotation tank and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I never asked him, well, what was that like for you? So maybe later after we introduce Leia.
Yes, and I will introduce Leia as their daughter, who is a consciously conceived human being in front of us right now. And Leia, would you just tell the audience about yourself a little bit?
They were on mushrooms when they conceived me. And so then I turned into a psychedelic clown. I love the intentional. I'm passionate about advocating and supporting the intentional community movement. And that's what I'm working on.
Well, I wanted to share.
Her middle name is Amanita, and I'm Mexican, so in my culture, the mushrooms are a very sacred religious experience. And prior to conceiving, we had a conscious conception. We knew the moment Alea was being created through our consummation, our sexual union together. And conscious conception can be had by anybody, and I think young people really have to understand how the sexual energy can be used to raise consciousness, not only for themselves, but for the new being that they're bringing in. And yeah, it's pretty amazing.
You don't have to, but you could.
Say whatever you want.
Well, yeah, there was something I wanted to say. Oh, yeah, I remember what it was. I was thinking while you were talking, Jodi, that I just want to thank you so much for the work that you've done for bringing the book. As soon as I just wanted to share this experience of when you were having the book events in LA. That was one of the first times that I really got to connect to the family more at large. And it had always been in the background, like we had meditated, done the gym. There was a picture of Yahweh on the altar and stuff like that. But that was the first time really connecting to the family. And it's really beautiful gift.
I think this is Jodi time. No, please, Jodi, please. Oh my God, Jodi is working on another movie about the Unarius people. She is so dedicated to the spiritual, and Rob, her husband, the work that they're doing is phenomenal. And it's through Jodi that a lot of opportunities come our way, so thank you.
All right, well, thank you. Questions for Sven?
Any other questions from the audience?
What did he say? I'm hard of hearing, so please ask questions because
Anything.
Any from the audience? Anybody?
If you had to do something over again, what would you do over that happened, that we saw in the film?
Yeah, I got the question, and I'm extremely focused in my life ever since it got over, was to try to find a way how to resurrect it again and make a new possible family back together again, and everybody, anyone else who wanted to join in the mission. And the mission was very clear and obvious to me and any of the ones that used to be in the family, but then, like Damien said in the film, they all left within 2 years. I never understood that, but I wasn't in Hawaii. I refused to go to Hawaii. And right about the time in the film where Mega says he really felt Yehovah went over the deep end, is when I told him I had to leave, and this was late '74, and I wanted to go back to school, and he didn't want me to go, and everybody else was going, and then we went to San Francisco for a while, but I knew that it was going to have that kind of ending, a sad ending, and I didn't want to be there for it, and so I didn't. I think I might have helped whatever rift caused the people not to stay after 2 years. I don't know, but the main point that I'm trying to come to is that if more of the family members, and these were very capable, articulate, and accomplished people with minds that could have established a plan, a way to make it keep going, they all gave up and caved in, and whatever the pressures of culture not to make such an amazing, incredible, miraculous dream, as Sunflower said several times in the movie. It was too good to be true, I guess, and I'm still working on it. Thanks to my daughter's new mission, it may very well happen, and I will never stop working on that possibility of that utopian communal energy to be felt by others again. So feel free to contact any of us if you know anybody who wants to do that.
After all this time, how do you guys feel about the label of a cult?
It's a cult, but it was an extremely positive cult. It doesn't mean good or bad. It just means cult.
Yeah, I think that the word cult needs to be reclaimed, and that cults are everything. Everything is cultural, and that there's a conception that all cults are evil and bad, and I think we should focus on the actual bad things that are being done and focus on the good things that are being done more and do those things more.
Right on.
Yes, sir.
Concurrently with the rise of Souce, was in Santa Barbara, there was also the Brotherhood of the Sun. And a lot of other communities throughout California and the western states. And I'm just wondering if there was any interaction, any connections, any mutual support, collaboration between the Souce family and other groups.
Were you there during the Love Israel visit?
What?
The Love Israel visit?
I was in the Army.
Oh, you were
I was
there.
drafted in the Army
Wow.
in late '73.
Do you know much about it?
Oh, they told me about it thoroughly, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there were two major expeditions. I guess the energies were pointing towards look for something else, look for something else. So they went on a mission up to Three Rivers, and then later on they went on the one that you're talking about to go visit Love Israel. But in '73 he came to the source in his Love Israel beautifully decked out RV that could hold like 12 or 15 people sleeping in it. And they came down to visit because many of the people in his family has already migrated into ours. And the son of Steve Allen was one of them. He was in Love Israel and several others. So Love Israel had to see what's going on, but they didn't hit it off, and so they went back and did their separate ways. And then short thereafter, we went to Hawaii.
You went to Hawaii after that?
Did one live there too?
One? One joined Love Israel after Yehovah died,
Yeah.
but not before.
What I heard too was that a number of Love Israel members defected to the Souce family.
Yeah,
You
before
know,
he
so
drove
people,
up to see us.
yeah, so Love Israel, does anybody know about the Love Israel commune? So it was a very big commune in Seattle, led by this gentleman, Love Israel. They had a restaurant in Seattle, I think they had a free store, they had like several homes, and they were actually like a long-running group in Seattle until the 80s when Love Israel sort of had a midlife crisis and started doing cocaine, and a number of problems came up, and the family morphed. They still stayed together. I visited them in like 2005, and he was still leading it. They were living in a couple of houses together. It was really wild. But what I heard was that a number of members had defected the Souce family. So Love was like, "What's up with this? I'm gonna go check this out and see who this Yehovah guy is." And so he did. He brought down his like decked out school bus that had been turned into an RV with a number of his women, and came and sat with Father Yod during morning meditation. And apparently Father Yod called him son. And Love Israel was like, "I'm not your son." And he said, "Oh, well, perhaps we can be cousins." And I think that they treated each other, so there was like this kind of like tentative friendship that formed, which is really wild. Like I saw going through ISIS's archive letters from Love Israel, they were like really beautifully drawn and handwritten. They were just such art pieces that they communicated with each other and became friendly and sort of talked about possibly merging the families. Isis told me when the women showed up, I was like, what did they look like? And she was like, "Oh my gosh, the women were wearing like these prairie outfits." And which is kind of funny because the Souce family women all have like plunging necklines and were just like really sheer dresses. And she was like, "They really felt like our country cousins." But anyway, so yeah, so they did, you know, that was the main one that I spoke, you know, that I heard about that they connected to. But Love Israel ended up being really helpful to the Souce family when they came to Hawaii. and they were on hard times. Live Israel had a home, a house that they let Souce family members stay at. So there was a friendship that was made there. And yet,
I just wanted to reply to the question about other groups, some of their members joining the Souce. And we had a couple from the Brotherhood of the Sun that joined us. And my brother joined the family. His name was Atlas in the family. And after I left the family, some of those people that were thinking of joining the family but didn't formed a restaurant in Venice Beach called One Life. And my Atlas worked there, and I used to eat there because now it's 75, 74, and I'm going to UCLA. And it was the best restaurant in Venice at the time. Until the one that my wife and I met at in Venice was having an all-night, 24-hour stay-up marathon for 4 days, and we would read Gurdjieff texts and do Gurdjieff work for about 3 or 4 hours every morning from about 12 to dawn every day for 4 days. Then there were also people from Stephen Gaskin's farm in Tennessee, and several from this commune in Three Rivers, central Northern California, and the Grass Valley area, which had several spiritual communes, Ananda Marga. And there were several from the collective that was in New Mexico for the architect, forgetting his name, Arcasanti it was called. Several of them joined, and there were men. Go ahead.
I got a couple questions. One is, were there any Christian people?
Oh yeah, several Krishners who were from Krishna in Venice.
And then I also want to mention you had two brothers that actually were in the Souce family.
Yeah, my brother Mars was featured several times. He disagreed with me, and he stayed and was one of the main stalwarts in Hawaii.
And then they're not other groups, communes exactly, but I think it's good to mention the builders of the Addendum. I saw it for the first time in the movie, the pictures when they're getting married. What were the other ones? Jack Lane and Gypsy Hall.
Gypsy Boots.
And Gypsy Boots.
Yeah, she mentioned Gypsy Boots. I was fortunate to be working in a restaurant in a role where I got to meet with Gypsy Boots. Every month he would bring in a load of organic, precious, tropical fruit and vegetables that we would use in all the recipes in the Souce, and he'd give us tremendous good prices at produce you could never get in any markets still to this day.
Jodi, I want to ask you, did you?
Interview Anne Marie Benstrom? Yeah, and yeah, I know her very well because she's a chiropractor and I'm a chiropractor, so we did some of our relicensing seminars together. But before that, I was living in Beverly Hills, and she used to do a thing in a kind of like a club, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, she was one of the family, they call it the Nature Boys, even though, of course, she wasn't a boy, but she was known in the group as the Tiger Lady. Ibanez and Gypsy Boots' other close associate, Gypsy Boots, had a restaurant in Hollywood at the time, and I guess that's a whole nother movie, I guess.
yeah, the Nature Boys definitely deserves their own movie. Does anybody know about the Nature Boys out here? Like, raise your hand if you do. Oh yeah, they were like a major subculture that's totally been lost to time. That's a whole other story. We'll get next movie.
That's really, I'm just curious about your transition, like once you decided to leave. And
Transition once you decided.
Once you decided to leave the family, like what that was sort of like for you, because I
Yeah, I
imagine.
stayed in touch with them, and of course, I tried to give as much support as I could from studying for computer science in junior college at the time then. And he called me up about a year, I guess 6 months or so before he died, and they said, you know, come back, we need your support and leadership or whatever. And I said, no, I gotta get my degree and go on a different route. And in a few months he was gone.
Was there more that it sounded like you were continuing to ask your
Oh,
questions.
I would imagine that once you're part of a collective like that, then going back and.
Well, then 2 years after that, go ahead.
No, just integrating back and finding this sense of individuality could be tough.
Yeah, I was a precious, I was a very, very tight, close student of all of his teachings. I wrote down all of them. And the person I was closest with in the family was Omi, who was probably the best spokesperson of anybody in the movie about the family. And he was a genius. He was a very egoless student of the spiritual work, and he knew about all the teachers of Yehovah, which we mentioned earlier that he studied with the Kundalini Yogi Bhajan, and a couple other yoga teachers, and he was a monk temporarily at the Paramahansa Yogananda mission in Encinitas, and so also one of his most profound influences was Manly P. Hall, which we just went to another event there. They honored him several years, 10 years before that, with a major event that we had for the Souce movie when it came out. And Paul Foster Case was probably also the most deepest influence on his spiritual structure or his whole perspective. The Builders of the Dedum is a school dedicated to studying all the Kabbalah through the Tarot deck, the Tarot cards. And Amy had just joined them before she met me, and I was just studying them and going to some of their lectures. And we still go there several Sundays a month over in Highland Park if anybody wants to see the essence of our spiritual teaching. Is done every Sunday there, but especially on the third Sunday, they have an event, a ritual called the Vibratory Attunement, which is color, light, and sound meditation and channeling and resonating that you do to the frequencies that are associated with powerful spiritual effects. The Hertz music and from the Tesla frequencies, they're called.
I also just wanted to point out, in relationship to your question,
You've also stayed in touch with a lot of brothers from the family, and Enoch, you still do the Mystic Road and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things, when you saw Jim Baker getting married to Robin, that woman is Ann Davies, and that's the Builders of the Addendum that he's talking about. It's the work of Paul Foster Case, and it's the Kabbalistic work spelled with a Q, which is the Western Mystery School. But I wanted to also point out that on the wall in one of the rooms was a picture of Corinne Helene. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She was from the Theosophy School. And so he studied with a lot of teachers, like Eugene Pearson was another one, and you can go on YouTube and put in BOTA, and Ann Davies will be giving talks and doing vibratory attunement and also chants. And the work is really, teaching people how to be magicians with the self-work and working with the inner school. So a lot of the things, Jodi, that you showed were really representative of some of the spiritual teachers from the early 1900s.
So bringing it back to answering that question, it's like it's the community, the spiritual community aspect continues.
Yeah, they tell them about it.
Yeah, Prince, E.J. Gold was not officially worked within the group, but you and I did. The Fourth Way movement is a very powerful group of teachings about the teachers of the Middle East and Tibet. And there was a movie made, if you want to hear about that, called Meetings with Remarkable Men, which was based on, Gurdjieff wrote a book called Meetings with Remarkable Men. I just wanted to say about the Golden Dawn for a second. Basically, Yehovah called us in 1972 the Brotherhood of the Source for a reason that he was in what do you call it, the top architecture of the Golden Dawn that was migrating into the state that it is now, which is many little Golden Dawn all over the world. But we were a actual working magical ritual cult called the Brotherhood of the Source, and he called us the Los Angeles School for White Magic and White Magicians.
How about yes?
Yeah, I'm actually very interested in the 54 children that were born by members of the group, and as a child of members of the group yourself, I'm wondering what kind of cohesion there is among that community, the differing personalities that may arise from that time. And this movie certainly shows compassion for the group and members thereof. And I'm interested in the community of children that came out of the group and what your experience has been with those people.
Leah, are you in touch with any of them?
Not much. I mean, like a very few. I did have a virtual event, during the pandemic, and someone came from a kid, one of the 54.
Oh,
Which,
Black guy.
What was that?
Electric Sun.
Sound?
No, electric.
Or electric?
He was shown several times. He was on the back of Sabbath's show.
Yeah, I thought that was sound.
And I would just also like to say that I really am looking to do that, and I'm working on a podcast to connect and find ways to be more connected, because I would really like that.
Yeah.
And I can say what I do know is that there are a number of the kids, especially in Hawaii, who are really tight with each other still. So on the island, Big Island, Sunflower from the movie. So his son, Solomon, the firstborn in the family, he now runs this grocery store and restaurant outside of Kapaloa with his friend Galahad, who's another son from the family, and a number of Source family members have
Yehovah's son.
Right, Yehovah's son, Superman. He still goes by Superman Aquarian, and he's there. And yes, some of them are together and some of them are not, and they have different points of view about the family. Some of them, it's a total mix.
We might have to wait for the next generation that they had until they start finding each other. Who knows?
Yeah. Does that answer enough?
I think so, yeah. With the information
Yeah.
Jodi, I have a question. There's so much information we learn from all the interviews that you do with people still living or who were living. Did you feel frustrated that you didn't have enough from Father himself in the film and audio? It seems like you used a lot of his audio. Was there a limit to that, or? I'm surprised his ego would seem to be happy to be filmed. And
I wish we had more film. We actually did have some film that we didn't use. A bit of film that was shot. We could have used a little bit more than what we had in. But I think ultimately we felt okay about it. I mean, I think it's sort of impossible to know him, you know, without interviewing him directly. And I think it worked out okay for us to have him be sort of unknowable, but you can sort of take what you can feel, you know, from the film. Different people have very different opinions of him in the film too, which is interesting. You know, some people see him and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad. They see the movie, they're like, thank God my kids were not alive during this time. You know, and then other people see it and they're like, oh my God, I wish I could have joined them, you know, through. It's really interesting to see like the different points of view. When Maria and I made the film, we really wanted to make it as sort of like a Rorschach, meaning that we knew people would see it and have entirely different views of it. And we thought that was good. We wanted to make it balanced so people could kind of make up their own minds about it and be non-judgmental, but lay out the facts as we knew them. So, you know, sometimes for me, when I see movies, you know, I'll see a movie when I'm 18 and then I'll see it 10 years later or 30 years later, and it's a totally different film. And I feel like the best, you know, the films I love the most are films that allow people their own point of view, you know, to figure out what they're seeing. Any other questions? Maybe we'll do like 2 more. Yes.
Do you have a favorite restaurant in LA now?
Well, I've become a lot more open to other sources of protein now. I'm not a strict vegetarian anymore. And I like the menu at many of the delicatessens. I love delicatessen food. But there's not really that many vegetarian restaurants with the quality and the degree of supremacy of flavor that we had in the food at the source. Nothing has touched that since. And I still dream of having that restaurant food available to me so I can eat it. But I would be very interested in helping start a restaurant like that again, which a few of the brothers have talked about, but it's an enormous undertaking now, maybe 100 times more difficult economically to do it now than it was in the 70s or 80s or even 90s.
Jodi, I have a quick question to ask you.
What?
I want to
Ask my husband this question because he's going to answer it in a different way than if I asked him at home. So when you saw Solomon being born, you might not have recognized him, but he was sitting kind of right next to them. And I wanted to find out I never thought about this until today when I saw the movie. What was that like for you, being in that moment, in that space and time, and how did it relate to our home birth?
Yeah, it completely, those two things are connected with our being together now. When I was there, if you really look at my expression, I was in this awe and wonder and love of being in this utopian commune that would afford this event and have a completely open, free and easy time for Heaven to have her child. She wasn't self-conscious about it at all because we had no restrictions about nudity. We went around completely nude all the time, except when we went out to the public. And so the human body was just this beautiful, sacred thing made from God that we all just worshiped and took care of each other about. And that what was going on with that room, the most important event, death and life, but this was life starting in this nature mentality of perfection of the childbirth process, which I was a major at UCLA before I went into the source of computer science, but my minor was in developmental psychology because I was always so interested in how the personality and the mind develops from the very first few months of life. So I was experiencing what I dreamed to find out about, and have in the most safe possible way for a human being to have. And then that's the way we had Alea in our living room in Beverly Hills. Amy lived in Beverly Hills when we met, and I moved in there. And we had Alea 9 months later. January 17th, we conceived her, and October 6th, she came out. 10 pounds, 6 ounces.
I missed the chocolate. She said, no, she wasn't 10 pounds. Who does he think I am? No, see, I kind of was, I'm very fascinated by energies, I'm sure many of you are. When the baby wasn't breathing, were people going, oh God, what's going to happen? You know, or what was the vibration? What was the feeling like?
Yeah, it was just this euphoria of being there when his head came out and they got the rest of him out. And they said, don't know what will happen. But a few minutes later, after they unwrapped the umbilical cord and Yehovah did his whatever commitment prayer or whatever, he started breathing just fine. And everything was
So did
hunky
everybody
dory.
kind of feel like it was going to be okay right from the beginning?
I don't know, I'm sure for about 20 minutes I was in horror, but I can't remember. All I remember is the joy that was present in the room. It was so visceral, you could cut it with it was just spectacular. The vibration in there, I've never been, I guess it was heaven. I guess it was a little bit of heaven for all about 100 people in that room where she was giving birth.
I just have one question about that. It seemed like what Father Yo was teaching you all in the family and what you were learning were a number of practices that were, some of which were illegal at the time, right? Like home births were illegal at the time, breastfeeding in public was illegal at the time.
Practically illegal at the time.
Yeah, right. Homeschooling was illegal at the time. Yeah.
But I wanted to tell you that it's also, did you ever see the Aquarian Mother doctrine? Yeah.
But it was pretty bold though, what he was teaching you, these things that were illegal that now are very accepted, you know, broadly, widely accepted. Did you ever get a feeling that you guys were sort of outlaws or anything like that? Like, how did it feel radical at the time to you?
Well, I think no one would have been there unless they didn't have that hunger for being a part of this revolution that we were feeling. But the sheer joy and ecstasy of the family love between everybody, there was no negativity allowed ever. If you're negative, you had a chance to say, well, I'm going to be positive from now on, or else you left or you were asked to leave. And that was maintained substantially throughout the whole time, that rule of just love each other and just be positive and do not be negative at all, ever.
I have to say I've heard other stories that are different from that. Quite a few, especially with the women. It is a tall order, but that was the aim. And that's really what makes the group unique. A lot of groups don't have that. I mean, everybody's going to fall off the wagon from time to time. But to have that aim, you know, is
I think the be kind was the, you know, the real, yeah. Because I know many of us that ask for something, oh, I want to be more loving. What do you get? The jerks coming to you, so you get to practice being more loving, right? So I think just being kind, you know, there's not much that can go wrong with that, right?
Yeah. It's just, he said the definition of love is taking care of each other. And that's all he lived. He was only there to help others. And if anybody ever asked him, his whole life that I heard are stories from the 50s and 60s when he was a member of the Nature Boys or starting his first restaurant, is he would be helpful to anybody that was in his presence, that he knew, friends, and anything. They called him he was right there every time. That was the thing he was known for.
And Jodi, didn't he, when you were doing this work, didn't he seem very familiar to you, like you already knew him?
What makes you think that?
Evading the question.
I will just say I've had some very unusual things happen in the process of working with this material that totally changed my life and my idea of the universe and what is possible. And after being around 40 Souce family members and getting to know a number of you well, I definitely, you know, my view of the universe expanded greatly. And one of the greatest things about getting to know all 40 members is seeing how much of the love and the kindness has lasted and is like the foundation of so many people's lives, as well as the health food practices. Like, that was really extraordinary, getting to meet all of these different family members and noticing that almost all of them look like at least 15 years younger than they actually were. You know, the people I knew in the Midwest or in other areas, like these practices, so many of you have kept and really created strong foundations for your lives. So anyway, I think maybe we should probably wrap it up at this point, but is there any
I just want to make two offers. One of them is, Jodi, if you'll connect us with the information for that meditation, that anybody here, I have emails for everyone that bought tickets, and I can share that with them if you'd like to open that to any of our audience to join you.
Oh, for the BOTA?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to invite everybody as well.
Yeah, we can make that connection, Jodi, if you'll help me.
Absolutely. Well, these three will all be outside, you know, afterward, and
Great.
and yeah, just so you know, the record here that Z has. Oh, you've got that one. Oh, nice. 2 records. Oh my gosh. So that's the Homa 13 record with some of the best album art in the back. I love that image. And then the Kahuta is the first record that they made as well. So those will be outside, and there's
And you have something.
Yeah, the book, if you guys are interested, the scrapbook has a lot of captions for the images, and it actually goes into a lot of material that's not in the film and is not in the first book, because my journey with the Souce family over a period of years is I just keep uncovering stories. There's so much depth, so many layers to the experience, and we also couldn't put in like any of the family's experience in San Francisco, so they had a whole thing happen in San Francisco. They were on 3 islands in Hawaii, and the story gets really intense. And anyway, that's in the book if you guys are interested. But thank you all so much for coming. Thank you
Thank you all. Ohio will support the rest